And Terry, maybe time for our last question, and I'll sum up. Again, thank you so much for your time. We heard you I think it was in the pandemic, you were hitting back at critics, saying your fund was likely to underperform post-lockdown. I have to mention this quote because I love it. "Deserting rats on a ship which refuses to sink," I think was your quote. So really two questions stemming from that. Why do you think people were and are so quick to criticize you when you've been so successful over the long term? Because you just cannot deny the track record over any period of time. And maybe how do you respond to comments around recent investment performance?
Yeah, I think the quote's actually a Helmut Kohl, the former German chancellor, who said, "Nothing so disappoints deserting rats as a ship that will not sink." I think was is attributed to him. I rather liked it myself as well, but it's his quote, not mine. Why do people criticize? I mean, obviously the answer is ask them, but you've asked me to speculate on it, so I will. I mean, I suppose envy is the most obvious answer. We in Britain in particular, I think, have a trait somewhat, some of us, maybe commonly, that I started working in America in 1980, and it's always struck me that one of the big differences between the American attitude to what we do, business in general, is somewhat different than the UK. In the UK, it seems to me, very often the common thought for anyone who's a success is, how do we stop them? How do we get what they've got? Wouldn't it be nice to see them fail? Whereas in America, it seems to me to be, I'd like to be the same as them. I'd like to emulate them. And I think that's a profoundly different thought process between these two countries united by their common language. And I think that's a part of it. The other thing is, bear in mind that what we did was quite different to the industry. And so it didn't win us a lot of friends amongst the general industry participants and their legion of sort of PR people and media commentators. We were quite clear from the very beginning of this that what we were going to do was a very different strategy in terms of the way of managing money to the way the majority of the industry did it, and that we thought that the way the majority of the industry did it wasn't very good. We were quite vociferous about that. And I guess what I would say in relation to that is there's a John Maynard Keynes quote I'll give you, which is not quite as snappy as the Helmut Kohl quote, but I rather like. He says, he, by the way, apart from being an economist, was also a pretty decent fund manager. So he should know, as they say, worldly wisdom teaches it's better for reputation to fail conventionally than to succeed unconventionally. People don't like people who are different and do things differently. It upsets them, basically. And I think it's really a combination of those two things that is at the root of this. How do we respond to it? I mean, we try not to get too worked up about it. We try not to comment on it very much, and just keep our heads down and do the day job, which I described to you earlier is mainly just a lot of quite hard work. You might say, well, if you don't try and respond, why did you write that in your annual letter? I was prompted by Conrad. I blame Conrad for this one, who said that he was quite, I don't know, put out by the press, which said sort of, Fundsmith underperforms and there's an exodus. And of course, there wasn't an exodus. I mean, but they, I guess the answer is they want to sell papers or pixels or something. And so they handed up. So Conrad and his colleagues prompted me to say something in response. But it's relatively rare to respond. By and large, we think that the numbers should do the talking. As they should with companies. That's what should do the talking about what we do. But we're happy to communicate around those numbers and say why those are the numbers and what we're doing to achieve them and what went right and what went wrong, basically. And my standard answer when things go wrong on a jocular sense is, well, it's Julian's fault, because Julian's our head of research and I've worked together for 35 years, the poor soul, so he can bear it. But the reality is, blame me, right? That's, when we get things right, and we will get things wrong, right? Nobody gets everything right.